Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton and Allison Giddens here with you on Supply Chain. Now, welcome to today's live stream. Allison, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I am
Good.
melting away here in Metro Atlanta. It's only
Yes.
125 degrees.
That's it.
Goodness gracious. But you know what's almost as hot as the weather here in Atlanta?
Almost. Almost.
This conversation we're going to be having right here today, very timely conversation in spend visibility. Folks, there's no shortages of timeless and new challenges in this current environment we're all working through. Today, we're offering up 3 key ways that organizations can more than tackle some of these big challenges and be more prepared to find success moving forward. We're going to be welcoming Allison, a couple of business leaders from your ally in the purchasing process to help us all find a better, more profitable, and scalable way. Now, Allison, as a business and manufacturing leader yourself and a fellow Atlanta Braves fan, one of our guests will enjoy that. Hey, I bet this show really resonates with you, right? Should be a great show, huh?
Yeah, I'm taking notes. I've got a little mini wipe off board on my desk where I take a lot. Helps me not go through so many post-it notes, to be honest.
I love
And
that.
yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
Very sustainable. You got your own whiteboard ready to go. All right. So, folks, 2 last reminders before we get started here today. First, let us know what you think. Share your comments throughout this live discussion right there in the chat. We'd love to bring those in. And hey, if you enjoy today's show, be sure to share it with a friend or your network. They'll be glad you did. Okay, Allison, let's get to work welcoming in our 2 featured guests here today. Starting with Ashley Groyle, Vice President, Operations Support and Analytics at Omnia Partners, and Jeff Gilmer, Senior Vice President, Private Sector at Omnia Partners. Hey, Ashley, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Scott. How are you?
Wonderful to see you. And Jeff, welcome. How you doing?
Hey, Scott, how are you? Great to see you.
Wonderful. Now, the Atlanta Braves bar was directed at our friend Jeff Gilmer, but hey, he's got the trash talk reward right now. He's a Phillies and an Eagles fan, and he's got a leg up certainly in the sports competition between Philadelphia and Atlanta. Allison, am I right?
Yeah, we're just salty because we're jealous.
Very salty.
All right, we got a lot to get into here today, Jeff and Ashley and Allison. But we're going to start with this. Well, a little fun warm-up question here. I want to pick y'all's brain around travel. We're breaking records here in the States with this travel season coming up here that's already kicked off. And did you know it is the late Anthony Bourdain's birthday here today? Yes, the famed chef and world traveler that we lost way too soon. Now, he once said, quote, "Travel changes you. As you move through this life and this world, you change things slightly. You leave marks behind, however small. And in return, life and travel leave marks on you," end quote. I love that. All right. So with that in mind, Ashley, I'm going to start with you. With global travel adventures in mind, what's one trip that you and your family have made that had a big impact on your journey?
Well, I've been very fortunate to travel quite a bit in my time, and I think the one that has impacted me the most was to South Africa. So getting to see not just, taking a safari, seeing the animals, but we really traveled across the country and got to see and experience a lot. So it was wonderful.
Wow. A gorgeous part of the world, gorgeous people, delicious food, wonderful customs. We went there last year as well, and I can't wait to get back. All right, so Jeff, that's going to be tough to top. But what's a recent trip or you name it, a trip that's made a big impact on your journey?
Yeah, so we took a trip up to a private island up off of British Columbia, up off of Vancouver, north of Vancouver, and to be in a remote setting like that where not many people were inhabited the island. We were there truly with nature. I'll never forget the landscape where you look at the trees along the ocean landscape, and there was little white spots on all the trees. It looked like Christmas lights, and they were bald eagles.
Wow! Oh my gosh!
Hundreds and hundreds of bald eagles and bears coming down to the seascape, and it reminds you of how beautiful this world is and all the unique spots that are out there. And we had never been to a place like that, as remote as that, and because it was a flying plane that flew you in and it flew you out, but just incredible. And the beauty that's out there in this world. And, you know, if you can get out there and see places like that, it's just absolutely terrific and never
Well
forget
said.
it. Yeah.
Well said, Jeff. And I love your advice even better, folks out there. Pause what you're doing. Take your family out there to visit somewhere right around the corner or somewhere afar, like Ashley and Jeff are talking about. But travel will change you for sure. Allison, we have quite some world travelers here today. What about you?
No. Well, I was going to reference a work trip, but now I feel pressure to not include a work trip. So I'm going to answer with I went to Italy right after college, and it was almost a last minute thing. It was a planned thing with a roommate, but at the last minute, the roommate had to cancel. So I had to decide if I was going to go to Europe by myself.
Wow.
Or if I was going to cancel. And I decided to go by myself. And I remember my dad dropping me off at the airport, and I leaned in the car and I said, "Don't tell Mom, but Michelle's not coming." And she said, "I'm not stupid. I'm not telling your mother." And so, yeah, I went for 10 days, had a blast. And looking back on it, I think it was a really good way to kind of enter reality.
I love that. And what a great story there, Allison. I'm sure it was a great trip too. All right, Allison, Ashley, and Jeff, I'd love to dive deeper into your travel experiences. Clearly, y'all value travel like many of our audience members do, but we got a lot to get into here today. And we got a lot of folks out there like Peter Boley, all night and all day. PB, great to see you here. Welcome to you, and looking forward to your procurement expertise throughout today's discussion. All right, so I want to start with this. Allison, Ashley, and Jeff, let's kind of set the table a bit, offer our audience some valuable context. We can't get enough context in this fast-moving world we're in. So, Ashley, let's start with you. Many folks know we've really enjoyed our programming with Omnia Partners going back a few years. Y'all been on the move. But for a handful of folks that may be new, tell us briefly, if you would, about Omnia Partners and a little bit about your background.
Sure. So Omnia Partners is the largest group purchasing organization in the United States. We help companies of all sizes and in all industries cut costs and simplify their procurement. And we do this through leveraging their combined spend and purchasing power to reduce their pricing, get better terms and conditions with some of the top suppliers in the nation, and better pricing than they could get on their own. And I have been with Omnia Partners for about 4.5 years. Okay. And after about 12 years in the procurement, consulting, and GPO space, I spent some time on the public sector side, supporting one of our largest members and working with cross-functional teams within Omnia Partners to do that before coming into my current role, which is leading our member-facing or our customer-facing analytics teams.
Love that. Someone told me once, Ashley and Jeff and Allison, for every 1 year you spend in procurement, it's actually worth 3 years in human lives. Is that right, Ashley?
It feels that way sometimes, for sure.
Well, welcome and appreciate what you've done in your career. And before we switch over to Jeff, folks, hey, check out, we're going to be dropping some links, but I want to make sure we mention it's free to join the community at Omnia Partners, which Ashley was just touching on. So y'all check that out. We'll provide some links here shortly. All right, so Jeff, tell us about your background, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So I've been dealing with supply chain and procurement leaders my entire career. In the 90s, I worked for a global air freighter logistics company. I was the worldwide client executive for, at the time, General Electric and Allied Signal. So, it was one of those things where if something didn't get to where it needed to be, you kind of heard about it from those two world-class organizations. So I cut my teeth with them, and then I spent 22 great years at Office Depot working with indirect procurement leaders in the businesses and services that a great company like Office Depot offers. So it's just always been those two areas, supply chain and procurement, and it's just kind of enjoy working with large, complex organizations and helping them to satisfy the needs that they have in their ever-changing business. So it's a great journey. Just love my career.
No doubt, and help those organizations find a better way, which we're going to be touching on here today. Allison, between Ashley and Jeff, and then of course your background that we don't talk enough about, all your years in manufacturing, I'd say we have quite an esteemed panel of practitioner experience here today, huh?
Oh, for sure. I like the wide array, and gosh, if you if you're doing supply and logistics and sourcing and procurement in the 90s through now, you've seen everything.
Yes.
Of course, we say that, and then tomorrow something will happen that no one's ever seen before.
Knock it on wood.
Yeah.
Knock it on wood.
Yes.
If you've done that, you deserve like a Time Life series or
Right?
something.
No kidding.
Right?
No kidding.
But hey, the good news is, kidding aside, you can learn and benefit from all the expertise here, right? And that's part of the big part of the value proposition. So more on that to come. Let's talk about this. Jeff, I'll stick with you for a second, because when it comes to the importance of spend visibility in 2024, what are some things that business leaders out there listening or viewing should know about?
Yeah, so I mean, look, I mean, you think about the business leaders and procurement and supply chain in general, it can be viewed as an administrative function more so than strategic. And I think that visibility, we at Omnia think that, visibility is actually the pivot between transforming from an administrative function to strategic. We know that the Fortune 1000 organizations are faced with really difficult challenges in their business. They have complex supply chains, getting their arms around the spend, geographic dispersion in many cases, siloed departments. And if they can get that, their eyes on the visibility, they can really become or help a company realize their full market potential, right? And the more they utilize the visibility, I'll say that they do a little bit less of managing the complexity in the business and more toward a focus towards the strategic component and contribution of the organization. So we think it's huge. We think it's, it's here and now, easier said than done, but it's kind of how we're thinking about it. And then the downstream costs associated when you don't have it, it's hard to quantify all that goes into it with Maverick spend and compliance related risks, right? Quality assurance. It's without visibility, it kind of gets wide open season.
That's right, Jeff. Just yesterday, Kevin L. Jackson, who Allison, the two of us were sitting down with a business leader up in the northern United States, and he was leading supply chain manufacturing for a company that has over 100 facilities around the world and over 90 distribution facilities. So kind of to Jeff's point, think of the complexity, right? And think of all the data. It could be tidal wave after tidal wave of data. But one of the initiatives they have been pushing through for years, kind of to your point, Jeff, is getting a hand around the data, right? Cleaning the data so that they can really focus in on the key priorities, because you can't focus on everything, right? And naturally, they are also using technology and other resources to do just that. And they've uncovered some tremendous opportunities. So more on that. And a lot of business leaders at those larger organizations are facing a lot of those same challenges that you are laying out there, Jeff. Ashley, spend visibility here in 2024. What should more business leaders know?
Well, I think, as I think everybody knows, we're in an inflationary period. And everything is cyclical, so we've seen it before, but I think when we're in one of those environments, it's critical for companies to cut their costs and reduce their spend. And so you can't do that without spend visibility. You can't make data-driven decisions. You can't even know where to look to cut those costs without visibility into your spend. So it's extremely critical right now.
That's right. And I'll get you to comment here, Allison, but before I do, Ashley, excellent comments. We had a former guest, Reg Holden, that was on a show with our friends at Omnia Partners a year or two ago, and he's got this great quote, and I had to go pull it up because I want to get it right. And he basically said, without spend visibility, it's like trying to get somewhere without a roadmap. You're just lost in the dark. And that resonates with so many folks, right? So Allison, weigh in when Jeff and Ashley both were speaking to what business leaders got to know about spend visibility and where we are in 2024. Your thoughts?
It's, you don't know what you don't know. And I think that is a challenging thing for business leaders to, we get caught up kind of in our day to day, like, this is what I have to do. And once I get fixated on something, it's like, well, I just have to get across this hill and then things will be clearer. But unless you start doing things a little bit differently, like engaging people that have been there, done that, and they've got the network, it can be tempting to just kind of stick in that rut. So if you don't know what you don't know, you have to.
That's
open it
right.
up.
Staying in the run of the business, the doing the business instead of working on the business.
Right.
And that's
that
where
is hard.
yes,
That can be hard.
Yeah, you've got a good bit of experience in that regard, Allison.
Oh,
All right, a couple quick comments here. Gary Skinner, I love any good Braves analogy. Good background and experience. Sourcing and procurement is like John Smoltz and Greg Maddux leading the team. And also, and Jeff, we'll have to find a good Phillies analogy there. Probably Mike Schmidt would be one, and maybe Bryce Harper, maybe them leading the team, maybe. And Larry Klein, my fellow veteran. Managing logistics in the Army ages you at 4 times. So I'm close to 100. Well, hey, you look 25, Larry, and great to have you here as well. And finally, Peter Bollet, great to see you as always. Equivalent of focusing on the tree and not the forest in front of you. Very poetic, very Robert Frost-like. All right, one quick comment. Hey, Caitlin's tuned in via YouTube. Folks, hey, find us on YouTube. I know a lot of folks are on LinkedIn here today where they usually are commenting, but it's easy to find us on YouTube as well. Very convenient. Y'all check that out. All right, Allison, Ashley, and Jeff are just getting started. One more comment. Sorry. We want to drop that link to the 2024 Spend Visibility Playbook from our friends at Omnia Partners. Amanda and Catherine behind the scenes will do just that. Y'all check it out. A great resource here today. All right, so let's get to more of the current environment, right? And especially as it relates to challenges when it comes to messy data swamps that many organizations get stuck in. Now, Ashley, you're an expert in all things analytics and then some. Tell us, what are some of those challenges, Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are in an age where there's just so much data available to us, right? There's data everywhere, there's information everywhere. And so I think that a lot of companies can find it challenging to navigate through everything that is out there to get to what matters, and even understanding how to use their data to determine what matters and then go after it. I think there's also still challenges with poor data quality. If data is not being entered into your system or captured correctly and accurately, they're not able to take action on it. So I like to say garbage in equals garbage out.
No doubt. Timeless advice there. And all data is not equal, right? As business leaders, we need to pay attention to the true signals, right? That we've got to kind of pick out of these overwhelming waves of data. And, kind of as I was reading through some of Omnia Partners, some of y'all's resources that we'll drop later, the 80-20, Wilfredo Pareto, we're going to make him really proud, right? The Italian economist way back in the day, trying to find as business leaders the 80% that the 20% causes, right? I may not said that very eloquently, but all y'all nodding your heads, and so I think I said it okay. But Jeff, what would you add to that? This messy data swamp that so many organizations are in these days.
Yeah, I mean, so from the human side of it, and Ashley's our data scientist queen, but it really is. We see companies from not having any idea where all the spend is, and we all can agree that it's in every quarter of every company, to companies that actually do have this spend, but a lot of them struggle on where to start, right? Mm-hmm. They don't know what to do with it once they have it. They've taken the time and the energy to accumulate it. Maybe they haven't. And it's really about, so many cases where they just don't know what to do with it and where to start, right? And how to put it into that strategic motion, if you will, for their organization. And that's just kind of what we see day in and day out. And they're the types of conversations that we have with organizations.
So, and that lack of knowing where to start, or Allison, going back to what you were talking about earlier, trying to pull yourself out of the day-to-day, right? By doing those two very natural things that happen across the business world every single week, every single day, we're leaving tons of money and other resources on the table. We're leaving lots of friction and complexity in the business that we can pull out. I mean, there's massive opportunities here. Allison, speak to whether it's a messy data swamp or some of those broader things that Ashley and Jeff spoke to there.
It's also, I think they've alluded to this, analysis paralysis, so much data. and you get inundated, and you don't know where to start, or it's a decision fatigue, and you're like, I don't know, I've got all this stuff, now what? But yeah, it's the first step. It's the tiny baby steps. I'm a big fan of the psychology behind motivation, and sometimes it just takes just a couple of little wins on the front.
Right. Break the problems down into bite-sized pieces, right? And my hunch is, Ashley and Jeff, you and the Omnia Partners team do a lot of that, because you're working with big organizations that have a lot of different wherewithal to their operations and to their organization and business model. How about Peter Bollet here? In this day and age, still surprises me that large companies are not well organized to leverage their spend effectively to create savings and opportunities. And I'll just tell you, Peter, if I get this wrong, please go be kind. He spent almost 30 years in the aviation industry with a really big, well-known carrier in the procurement leadership role. So good stuff there, Peter. All right. Any other comments? We're about to get to some good news, right? And 3 ways that organizations can really tackle well some of these challenges and others that Ashley and Jeff and Alice have spoken to. Any other comments, Ashley or Jeff, before we get there? I know we've been throwing a lot at y'all, a lot of comments. What y'all are sharing is generating a lot of thoughts between.
Yeah, and I was just on Peter's comment. And the other thing that we see too is, companies will go through, an acquisition period over 10 years where they might add 3, 4, 5, 6 organizations, and they still have the same 7 people in the procurement team, right? So, and then there's the mid-sized companies that, there seems to always be a little bit of a constraint on human capital there for the mid-sized companies. So it's tough. I mean, it's just really, really challenging for the procurement teams to get out of that administrative mode and more into the strategic mode. It's not easy. And we see it.
Well, Jeff, I'm so glad you brought that up, because so many challenges across global supply chain can be described as you put it, right? And I think instantly of the impact on our people, right? And the burden they have, how much stress we put on, because we just can't solve some of these things that are tough to solve. But I'll tell you what, again, looking at data and the opportunities there, imagine if you could save up to 39% when it comes to human resources, or 16% with corporate services, 37% with IT and telecom, 28% in facilities. I'm looking at some of the things that y'all have done, and some of the savings opportunities are there. Imagine how that could be reinvested to take some of the burden off the people in the business, right? Allison, that we're going to get to a $4 million figure towards the end of today's show, which I can't wait to get into. But Allison, when you think about the impact that these great challenges have on our people, how cool is it to take some of the weight off them, huh?
Yeah, for sure. It's also empowering them to be able to think creatively, to take that information and run with it. Because if you're already in the weeds and you're already doing this day to day, and all of a sudden, your leadership has said, here you go, here's some information, here's the interpretation of it, now go do good things. It lets everybody do what they're best at.
I love that. I love that charge. Go do big things, right? Let's take the friction out. Let's take the obstacles out. And that's a great segue, Jeff and Ashley, because we're going to pick y'all's brain on 3 better ways. 3 ways organizations can do that, do big things, more importantly, with big impact, right? Big outcomes, right? Because if it's not producing outcomes, why the heck are we doing it, Ashley, Jeff, and Allison, right?
Right.
All right. So Ashley, we're going to go through 3 ways, and we're going to start with you on the first way. Tell us more.
So data integration and automation, right? So going back to the previous conversation, many companies do have an ERP or a P2P or some kind of data management system in place. Oftentimes they have multiple because they are decentralized. So they don't have their data all in one place, right? And that makes it even more challenging to then action that data. So it's critical and it's crucial to have data integration and automation so that you can see all of your data. It ensures that data from different sources adheres to standardized formats. It reduces inconsistencies. The automation piece can automatically identify and cleanse errors in the data, such as duplicates or incomplete records, and that will improve your overall data accuracy. It also reduces the risk of human errors that can contribute to that poor data quality, and it minimizes that manual data processing effort.
So let me take this opportunity. I love that. What a great starting point, because that really is the tremendous opportunity we have in this incredible, extraordinary technology era that we're living in, right? We're seeing innovations every hour, and clearly you are baking that into all that y'all do at Omnia Partners. But Allison, I got to apologize to all the former organizations I've been a part of and how I've driven their human error factor wrong when it comes to the data. But, kidding aside, if you look at any study, 10, 20% of manual keystrokes, depending on what you're looking at, that's how many errors are being generated. Imagine the impact on organization. But when it comes to data integration and automation, Allison, your thoughts there on the first way?
My first thought too was realizing in a day and time where all you read about is mergers and acquisitions, right? You have everybody. So you've got these companies that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years working from a single ERP. And now all of a sudden, they've combined with 2 or 3 other companies. They have also used their own ERP for 10 to 15 to 20 years. You have all these weird overlaps.
Yes.
And again, to Jeff's point, nobody knows where to start. How do you fix it?
I've got 2 folks that I bet do know where to start. Allison, I'll be leaning on y'all, which, by the way, Supply Chain Now is a member of the Omnia Partners ecosystem. We see value. We don't just talk about it. But what would you mean? Jeff, I'll get you to, before we move to the second way, I know you may want to comment, especially given your journey, on the great point Allison just made, because all the, of course, M&A, oftentimes the outcomes there are you're putting a bunch of systems, technology platforms, and goodness knows millions of spreadsheets into a sandbox, and then say, okay, figure it out. And man, we lose so many opportunities and so much to the top and bottom line, amongst many other repercussions from that. Jeff, your quick comment before we move to the second way.
Well, look, I just think that you need to recognize that you've got data in different places, right? And you've got to make sense of it somehow, some way. And if you don't, it's just a huge miss. I mean, Allison, you hit it spot on. It's not uncommon to see organizations with double-digit ERP systems, right? And having there's so much, and when you let that remain where it is and don't make an effort to consolidate it, you're never going to be able to understand where the spend is, how it's being, how widgets are being procured and how they're being paid for, and all the other downstream things that come with it, right? It just opens up Pandora's box.
It reminds me too of, remember in the 90s or the early aughts, where you'd have a guy standing on the corner trying to sell baseball tickets, and you had a guy in another corner trying to buy them. And you're like, guys, could somebody talk to each other here?
Just talk.
Oh man, let's just connect up. But it's such a great point. It's such a great point. And the data integration opportunities that exist today to get all of these systems talking, or eliminate some systems, right? And get rid of the too much redundancy that can be found oftentimes, especially in larger organizations, as you have different folks making different technology purchasing decisions, and you blink and you got 3 or 4 redundant systems, and you need one, right? Opportunities abound. A couple comments here. Let's see here. Larry says the more familiar that the analyst is with the business side, the better they're able to help. The better they're able to help management interpret the data. And Ashley, quick aside before we hit the second way, it's really important, data context and being able to interpret that data, right?
Absolutely. It's critical for the business.
And the second comment I wanted to pull out here, I think this is our dear friend, Mary Kate Saliva. Great to see you, Mary Kate. She says, timely and relevant conversation. I feel much of this advice applies to nonprofits. And I just want to make sure we clarify, Omnia Partners, you work with public sector, nonprofits, private sector, real estate, private equity, and a whole bunch more. Absolutely. And I bet those that cross industry experience really helps get creative, right? Because there's a lot of transfer. Some folks in particular sectors may not believe that, but at least from my experience, there's a ton of transferable ideas.
For sure.
All right. So the first way is data integration and automation. The second way is more cultural. Jeff, your thoughts there?
Yeah. So, we have a roadmap that we take organizations through, and the first one is to make sure. Again, I'll go back to the comment about spend is in every corner of a business, and it's silos. It's important to collaborate with stakeholders, right? Because they all have different challenges depending on where they are in an organization. And so it's, you have to have a voice, you have to have a stakeholder from the various areas of the business. You have to then be able to make projections. What is the goal? Because when spend is in different parts of the business, somebody may be trying to reduce spend. Someone may be able to take it from 25 suppliers to 10. Some may be looking to improve working capital, right? It goes all over the board. And so it's important to, you bring spend together, it's important that you bring the stakeholders together to understand what are the needs of the business. And then collectively, you need to determine, okay, well, what's the heavy lifts and light lifts, right? And I think that's where you start to think about, do I reach out to a GPO partner? Do I talk with suppliers, right, to better understand, am I thinking about this the right way? And then it comes down to, we've got 25 or 30 things on a piece of paper that we've collected from all the stakeholders. Get some quick wins. Allison, you said it before. Get some quick wins. Get things in motion for the business, because that will build momentum. That will allow you to prioritize short-term to long-term and really start to get accomplishments happening within the business. And once you do that, then you start to get fancy and high tech, and you start to implement KPIs and SLAs. And make sure that as you think long-term, you now have a sense of what resources are needed and how do I build this out for long-term. Suppliers are so important in this process. And I would say that there's nothing more meaningful than to make sure you have a cadence of sitting down with the suppliers, doing constructive business reviews. What did we accomplish? Where are we? Are we ahead of or behind of where we thought we would be? What needs to change? And the next thing you can really, really start to get your arms around the spend that's out there across the business. It minimizes the geographies, the silos, and some really cool successes start to happen that, again, now takes the procurement and supply chain leaders from somewhat administrative to more strategic. And that's the fun part of it.
That, Allison, I feel like Jeff just walked us through like a cultural transformation.
Like I understood every bit of that. Yes.
Yeah. I'm with you, Jeff, and I'm ready to run through the wall behind me based on what you described there. Allison, and by the way, for the handful of folks out there, we love our acronyms in supply chain. He mentioned, after taking those first few bites, then you can establish the key performance indicators, the KPIs, the SLAs, the service level agreements, just to make sure everybody's with us. But what else did you hear there that's so important culturally, Allison, to take advantage and find a better way?
That bringing stakeholders together conversation that happens early, because I think that where we do have so many intersections of competing priorities, that there are some priorities and initiatives, I believe, that are almost mutually exclusive, and we have to watch for that. So you might be looking to minimize risk in one area, so you may limit the number of suppliers you have, but then over here, that minimizing the risk of something might introduce risk of something else. And so the conversation that you're having at the table with all the stakeholders, again, it's information and it's knowing how to interpret it from the get-go.
Excellent point. And what Jeff touched on and what you touched on again there, that alignment. What are we trying to do here and have everybody pulling in the same direction? That sounds simple, maybe sounds cliche perhaps, but that is so relevant across so many different functional areas of a business. Peter Bollet says a solid strategic procurement approach pays for the team itself. Total cost of ownership and hard savings far outweigh the cost of the team. Good stuff there, PB. And Larry Klein, I love this. Accomplishment breeds
Yeah,
trust.
good call.
That is so important. You know, on an earlier show, we had a global supply chain executive just hammer home, especially in this age of technology where things are moving so fast. Great communication, which is timeless, but especially as we're taking on new initiatives, being able to communicate to the team, because that helps build the trust in the direction where we're going. That and accomplishments and many others. And that trust, Jeff, Ashley, and Allison, is what moves mountains, right? When you can do it together, aligned and together. So good stuff there. All right, Jeff, I think as much of a data geek I am, Ashley, I love the cultural. That's one of my favorite parts of the 3 ways. And now we're going to move right into the 3rd way. And we're going to start with Jeff. So, Jeff, we've talked about data integration automation. We've talked about building that culture of compliance and transparency and can do. What's the 3rd one, Jeff?
Utilizing a GPO.
Hey, and not your grandfather's or your grandmother's GPO, but a forward-looking, innovative, changing how stuff gets done GPO is what I would say. Jeff, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so, just Omnia, right? I mean, when we do this with members, it's important to make sure that the company is not viewing the GPO as a replacement or in conflict. A GPO is actually an extension of a procurement team, right? There's only so many hours and days and weeks in a year. And our procurement leaders are faced with, the direct spend challenges, inflation, which, is pretty prominent right now.
Yeah.
And you can't get to it all. And so it really becomes working with a GPO, especially in the indirect spend, which we see in billions of dollars in the long tail, and you can't get to it. Where you need to determine where does a GPO fit in? Where do you want them to focus? Because if you're going to get to car rental, great. Maybe you're not going to get to office products. Maybe MRO, which can be extremely large in a long tail spend. Where is that complement? Where is that connection? And in a sense, GPO becomes a part and an extension of the procurement organization without you having to pay for it, right? It's free.
Man. And I want to pull something out before I move to you, Ashley. You really can't get to it all. You can't. No. We had all the thousands of conversations we've had here over the years. Some organizations have tried to throw as many members of the team at certain big problems, but as they've grown and grown global, we got to leverage a better way, a better process, a better technology, better partners like Jeff's describing. So Ashley, speak to leveraging a GPO as a 3rd way.
Right. Well, with Omnia Partners, we do have the ability to help you with your spend visibility and take a look at your spend and help you identify those areas where we may be able to help you, as well as take a look at that tail spend, right? So you might be with one provider, you think you know who you're with for office products, to use Jeff's example, but we can see 10 additional suppliers there by helping you look at your data and then work with you to potentially implement that solution with one of our supplier partners. And we can do that across, the vast majority of our contract portfolio. We have over 160 contracts on the private sector side, and I think over 1,500 contracts on the public sector side. So there's a lot of opportunity where we can help you.
And a sense of urgency, so we can get quick wins. Wins. I think all 3 of y'all have spoken to how important that is, and not to be rash, but because they exist. The opportunities exist. Here's Mark Trowbridge. He joined us a little while back, and I'm going to share his comment here. The quick wins Jeff mentioned are key. That's one of the biggest levers of using GPO services to deliver better programs at a lower cost, often much better than taking 3+ months to go through the entire sourcing process. Save that for strategic leveraging. Man, brilliant. And CHAM, hey, I know you're getting things done out there. You can take your cape. You're a little bit late, but that's okay. Take your cape off, right? Grab a sandwich, and I can't wait to hear your perspective on today's conversation. Great to have you here. Okay, Allison, we covered 3 ways there, including the 3rd being, leverage resources like a group purchasing organization, an innovative one. Your thoughts there, Allison, on that last one?
think from a small business perspective, it's always nice to hear the conversation about GPO being there for the leverage for people like us. And I know it's not exclusive to us, but having the ability to be able to play with the big dogs, that's a nice thing. So yeah, it's a tough, if you're always working with certain vendors, because you're always working with certain vendors, you might not be aware of the opportunities that exist in something like this. So it's just it's a win you didn't even know was possible.
How about that? It's in the blind spot. And Allison, hey, there's good news too, because while you and I both wish we had billions of data and spend data that we could analyze with Ashley, Jeff, and the team, hey, they work, many GPOs, but especially Omnia Partners works with companies of all sizes, right? Across many sectors. So y'all, we're going to offer some links for you to check it out. And again, I like a deal. I know Allison likes a deal too. Free to join the community. More on that to come in just a second. But hey, before we get there, we're going to break out our shades, get real bold and fearless here today, as we're going to be offering up several future trends and predictions. I can't wait to hear what Ashley and Jeff have to say. So what can we expect to see just around the corner, perhaps? Ashley, your thoughts?
Right. So I think with spend visibility, as we look into the future, I think crystal ball, I think we're going to see enhanced machine learning, more AI being leveraged within the data and the system. So we're already seeing that, but I think it's going to be more widely used and much more dependable than perhaps it is today. I think that will then lead to on-demand or real-time spend analytics. So right now, we're taking a historical view of the data. Maybe we're doing quarterly, maybe monthly refreshes for some of those more sophisticated companies out there. But it still takes time to process all that data, and we're still looking backwards. So I think with that enhanced machine learning and AI, we'll be able to process the data much faster and be able to act on it much quicker. And then also predictive analytics. So looking at those trends over time and to be able to predict seasonality, trends in the data, and where procurement teams should focus their energy.
Yes. And Ashley, speaking of AI and machine learning, I bet you're seeing, at least what we're seeing, the most successful organizations are not taking AI and then trying to apply that everywhere. They're being very targeted. What's the business opportunity? What's the business challenge? And finding the right tool or technology. Your thoughts here, Ashley?
That's absolutely right. So you have to be very strategic and thoughtful in terms of what systems and products you're going to implement and how you implement them, as it's still relatively new technology out there.
But at the same time, as I talk out of both sides of my mouth, Gartner and many other firms are pointing out that leading organizations are finding ways to increase that competitive disadvantage between where they are and where their lower performing companies are. And sometimes you got to bring in experts from the outside that have a track record for doing so. That's kind of what we're showcasing here today. Jeff, back to the future. We don't have flying, not Lamborghinis, DeLoreans. We don't have flying DeLoreans yet, right around the corner. But what predictions would you have, Jeff?
I want to predict the Phillies in the World. No, I can't go there.
Wow.
Hurts my heart.
Listen, you've been throwing the Braves at me. So
fair. That's fair.
I think, listen, with spend visibility, I think we're early in the game. I think it's going to be leveraged and utilized more and more in the not too distant future. I mean, I think you have to. I mean, if you look at the U.S., we've got unprecedented debt. We've got an election coming up that we're not going to know what's going on. Inflation is here. Is it going to go down? Probably not, but who knows? Offshore, we've got, it's unsettled, geographies out there, and we don't know what that impact's going to be to supply chain. So what I would say is uncertainty in the world, data analytics is going to be needed because it's one of those things that we can control. There's things that we can't control, right?
Right.
But there are things that we can control, and data and spend visibility is absolutely one of those things. So for those companies that haven't started, no time like the president, take the baby step, right, Allison? And for the companies that are down the road make sure you have a plan, you got the stakeholders, and get it engaged, because it's something that can happen today and you don't have to wait. But there's no way that I don't think it can be. It's going to be more and more needed for organizations, because you also don't see the extra headcount coming in either. So it's about figuring out how to do it differently and utilizing what's available to you out there in the universe.
Excellent point, Jeff. And if folks out there, and I also get your thoughts here, but if folks are feeling like we are playing up the FOMO factor, it is because we are, right? That fear of missing out. Leading companies, right? They are uncovering this, and they're bringing more resources to the game, and they're cracking the code again with that inside and outside perspective that's so important, and letting the experts be the experts, right? Because to Jeff or Ashley, one of y'all said, you can't get to it all. You can't. Unless you've got, I don't know, 7 drones or or you name it. But Allison, what'd you hear there in Ashley and Jeff's predictions of what's to come?
It's really interesting that we are very cautiously optimistic, I think, with future, whether it's utilization of technology and data. You look at all the projections post-COVID, right, of everything from logistics to supply chain, and people trying to wrap their heads around a new framework and trying to say, okay, this is how it's going to be going forward. But I think these predictions are a good stretch, right? I think that they are the current data shows that's where things are going now, and this is where we've got to be pointed in that direction. I'm happy. We just interviewed an intern here at Wintech, and
okay,
they're going to be probably just for the month of July. And I was all excited when I saw the resume, because they're doing data analytics, they're doing data science, they're doing all these things, and they want to come work for here for a month. I'm like, that's so exciting. So awesome. I'm encouraged. I think the future is bright.
Alice, I share in your optimism. I think the future is bright as well. But I will say we have got an ever challenging road to go. From cyber, from geopolitical turmoil, right, from the economic, goodness gracious, Jeff, I can't wait to get past this election, right, and regain some headspace there. But and all of that and a lot more requires us to do business differently. And folks, that's why we got to lean into some new resources like what Ashley and Jeff are talking about. All right, so a couple quick comments, and we got some resources for y'all. Hey, Laughing Zeus via X talks about using the SWOT analysis and finding areas that need to be improved, identifying strengths and weaknesses to help improve operations that will help the company reach their goals. I bet that's a big part of the process there that Ashley and the team take. And CM loves your comment earlier, Allison, playing with the big dogs. Yes, and opportunities for all, right? Opportunities for all, and that's what I love. Okay, so we've really covered a gamut here. We have established some of the challenges out there, right, on the front end. And then we went through, hey, some good news. Y'all know I love good news. 3 ways that you can do things better, be better prepared to tackle these challenges and a whole lot more. Then we got Jeff and Ashley's predictions for what's to come, including some non-serious ones. No, I'm kidding. The Phillies are poised, Jeff. They are the best team, clearly, in the National League. So that's an easy bet to make.
I think you're trying to jinx it at this point.
That's a long season. Thank you, Allison. It's a long season, please.
Well, I think they're going all the way too. What do you think? I mean, they're unbeatable. They're unbeatable.
They're too good. They're too good, folks. And of course, if you're joining late, Jeff is a big Philadelphia sports team fan, and Ashley is a Liverpool. Her and her family, Liverpool soccer fans. So there's something for everybody here today. Speaking of resources, right? I want to do this in a couple different ways. I want to first off make sure folks know how to connect with both of y'all, and then we got a couple of resources for folks to learn more about what we've talked about here today. So, Ashley, what's the easiest way? How can folks connect with what you're up to, and for maybe a post live stream conversation? How can folks connect with you?
Yeah, just go to our website, omniapartners.com. I think there was a playbook that was put in the chat, and that will connect directly to me and my team. And we can talk about anything and all things spend visibility and data science. So yeah, reach out.
It's just that easy. It's just that easy. And then, Jeff, when you're not taking in Eagles games or Phillies games, and when you're not traveling the world helping business leaders crack the latest chapter in their growth and success, how can folks connect with you, Jeff?
Sure. So I'm on LinkedIn, or jeff.gilmer@omniapartners.com. Shoot me a note, and I'd be happy to respond and get engaged with conversation.
Love that.
Yep.
Okay. Jeff and Ashley, it's been great to have y'all here. Before we all go, though, we're still going to get Allison's patented key takeaway from this jam up conversation, but equally as important, equally as important, I want to share these resources because I've enjoyed diving into both of these, including, we mentioned earlier, the $4 million figure. Well, folks, how about you check out this neat case study where a logistics service provider saved about $4 million in their first year of being an Omnia Partners member. How about that? And also, I pointed out the step-by-step process. I think I love the linear. It's not perfectly linear, I'm sure, because there's all kind of stuff you got to do at the same time. But folks, they've been there and done it, and the proof is in the pudding like this here. So check out that link to that case study there. And then secondly, folks, again, we want to offer up the opportunity to become a member, become a supplier, but in particular, membership is free. Membership is free, right? Your ally in the purchasing process. Check that out. I'm sure Jeff and Ashley and the whole team would welcome y'all being a part of the growing community y'all have at Omnia Partners, right? And to make it even easier, we have dropped links to all of that. The case study right there, one click away, right there in the chat. We also dropped the link. You can learn more about joining Omnia Partners free for members, or you can check them out as a supplier. And as this LinkedIn user, this might still be Mary Kate. Let us know, Amanda and Catherine. The reason I enjoy the podcast Supply Chain Now is they talk about real world issues, good stuff. I agree with you. And Gary, no, you're not just a healthcare guy. I've seen you in action. I appreciate what you do out there, and great to have you here today. Ashley and Jeff, we're going to put pressure on Allison now because we've got, by my count, I've got about 19 key takeaways from the brilliance Ashley and Jeff dropped on us here today. So, Allison, what's your favorite from today's conversation?
Yeah, so I ran out of room on my wipe-off board. I have a little wipe-off board that instead of Post-it notes, that's where I take my notes, and I'm officially out of space. I think my biggest takeaway was really going back right to one of the first things Jeff and Ashley said, which encompassed the idea that you've got to have the visibility to begin with. You can't fix problems. You can't really have goals. If you don't know what it is that you're working with now, you can't figure it out where you want to go. So by working with this group and by being able to turn around and say, all right, if I don't know what I don't know, what am I missing? To the very people that can help connect you to those resources, you'd be crazy not to. I mean, $4 million. I know that that's not indicative of everybody, but just to think like, what money are you leaving on the table?
Have the conversation, Allison.
Right.
Well said. Right. Have the realization you can't do it all, and that there are better ways, and have a conversation. You know, I promise you, as Allison's pointing out, you're going to meet some great people along the process, whether y'all do business together or not. So check it out. And then, by the way, I got it wrong. It was Demetrius that shared that nice comment earlier about why they tune in to Supply Chain Now. So thank you, Demetrius. One last comment from Mark here, and this doesn't cut us off too much. Mark says, not even the biggest corporation is the biggest fish in every one of their spend categories. It's often surprising how Omnia helps multi-billion-dollar revenue corporations achieve remarkable results in untouchable categories. Mark, good stuff. Great to have you here today.
Great way of wording it too. Untouchable categories. It's those pieces that you didn't realize were there.
Shakespearean. And Mark, I bet he's been there and done it. I know Mark. Good stuff there. And Seaham says, it's exciting when you can directly apply what you learn. That is right. Not only is that exciting, but that's how you get better, right? Learn, apply. Keep that cycle going. A lot of good stuff here today. Really enjoyed our conversation with Ashley and Jeff. Big thanks to Ashley Grohl, Vice President, Operations Support and Analytics at Omnia Partners. Ashley, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. I had a blast. It was great to speak with you.
We did too. And Jeff Gilmer, Senior Vice President, Private Sector, Omnia Partners, resident Philadelphia sports team fan. Let's have some more baseball conversations, but take it easy on me and Allison and Braves Nation, would you?
Total respect for you too. Total respect. I enjoyed the time. Thanks so much.
Well, absolutely. I really appreciate what y'all both are doing and all of our conversations we've had over the years with our friends at Omnia Partners. I tell you, the hits keep on coming with Ashley, Jeff, and the team. Allison, always a pleasure. I always appreciate your manufacturing and leadership brilliance and a lot of what you shared here today. Look forward to reconnecting with you soon.
Same with you. I'm excited about today. I learned a lot, and it was great to meet Jeff and Ashley. Thank you.
It sure was, folks. But now, after everything you've heard here over the last hour, the onus is on you. Take one thing, like Seahan points out, take one thing from today's conversation, from what Ashley, Jeff, and Allison dropped on us here, put it into practice. Take that first step, whether it's a realization from a leadership perspective or it's picking up the phone, making that first call, whatever it is. Action, it's all about deeds, not words. So with all that said, on behalf of our entire team here at Supply Chain Now, Scott Luton challenging you to do good, give forward, be the change that's needed, and we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.